Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of a new short series that we're going to be doing here at Rosada. We'll be speaking to different people from the industry over the course of the next few months about various topics. Episode 1 is about domestic airlines in tourist destinations. So the coronavirus pandemic's really hit this industry hard. So things are hopefully starting to get back to a little bit of normal or a new normal. So I'm delighted to be joined today by Edward Alsford, the COO and accountable manager from Manta Air, who is the perfect person to be talking about this topic. Hi Ed, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
No worries.
For those who aren't aware of Manta Air and what you do, can you give us a bit of information on you guys?
Yeah, so Manta Air is kind of the new player in the Maldives. We call it a new exciting airline, kind of driven more on service. We started our operation with 3 ATRs in February 2019, operating to domestic airports through the Maldives. Our flagship one being one called Dalu. That's one of the 7 atolls, about a 40-minute flight from Mali. And then in November 2019, we launched our seaplane operation, where we operate 6 float planes, offering doorstep service to contracted resorts. As you can tell with our location, it's effectively majority is tourist destination. We're moving from the resort, from the main airport to the resorts.
Yeah, those seaplanes are amazing. The whole place in general is an amazing place. I highly recommend it. So the coronavirus pandemic has obviously had a huge impact on tourist destinations, especially countries whose largest economic industry is that. Probably a silly question, but how have things been in the Maldives?
To be honest with you, it's been the whole situation's been dire. We, as a company, have been operating effectively throughout the pandemic, but just with one twin otter on standby on floats. So the ATR operation has been grounded effectively since the 1st of April. The borders closed, I think it was on the 12th of April, the borders of Maldives closed. They reopened the borders on the 15th of July with very few cases. Thankfully, the death rate in Maldives has been very low. I think as it stands today, it's 21 people.
Wow.
Though in recent weeks, the cases of the coronavirus have been increases in the local population. But the advantage Maldives does have is that it's one island, one resort. So the country reopened. They put in place all the extra things you expect, the cleanliness, the mask wearing, and resorts are slowly opening, though, to be honest, the take-up of customers have not been that high. Yeah. We're looking in country a couple of hundred a day coming in, which is obviously very, very worrying. Yeah. Manta Air have got 2 aircraft in the dock, because our aircraft are basically float planes, so they sit in the dock, operating as demand comes for the resorts, because it's we have to be there. It's a chicken egg situation. We need to provide. So stuff is trickling in, not as much as everyone would like, and we're just kind of waiting and seeing. The big problem I see is Maldives is a long haul destination, so it's building that confidence. And while China's borders are closed, Russian borders are closed, Europe has got travel restrictions and quarantines. Until those are lifted, it's going to be quite a hard slog for the Maldives.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there, that flights are just starting to kind of resume now to some degree. What message have you had to take to try and give passengers that confidence to travel and fly with you?
See, first, it's a strange model for us. We, as a passenger coming into the Maldives, you won't have the choice whether you fly, who you fly with, which domestic carrier, because everything's contracted by the resorts. So we'll have resorts that are contracted to us, and there'll be other resorts that contract from another airline. So unless you're in that kind of uber rich category where you decide you like Manta because you like their service and their aircraft, and you want to charter an aircraft, you don't have much choice whether to fly with us or not. So as an operator, we've not made a big song and dance that we're cleaning the aircraft. We see that now as a given. We've always cleaned the aircraft. We're following the measures that the health authorities are recommending, and that is a given. So we haven't gone out and made loads of fancy videos showing us how we're cleaning all the aircraft, because, you know, it's part of being a safe operation. So in terms of encouraging guests, it's more, of course, we put things on Facebook and pictures of the fancy and the scenery, but it's more the resorts marketing machine will generate our business. You know, we're not like the likes of, you know, Emirates or Etihad or BA, where you're almost cold selling. It's part of an overhaul package. So on a marketing front, the airlines of the Maldives are a strange model with domestic, because we're if the resorts are full, we're full, and that's where we're in this kind of this big mess together really at the moment. We're just trying to navigate through.
That's it. And I think obviously so much has been out of the hands of businesses during these last few months. I know you personally were keen to invest some time while you could into improving your staff's knowledge and training in all sorts of areas, including on our Envision software. I suppose, is this one of the few kind of positives that can be taken from the crisis, that this focus on employees, it can only be a good thing for the future?
Yeah, so for us, it was an interesting one. What we did was, we obviously were a very new startup. We took the opportunity to completely look inward across our whole company. We created teams of 7 or 8 people from mixed departments, and we had about 8 of these teams, and then we got each department to list out all their core functions and what they do and what software they use. Like engineering uses Envision, and then each team was targeted to look at, say, and just talk about engineering, because you're obviously connected to the engineering side, look at all the functions that engineering do. Now, obviously, engineering is very much driven by manuals and stuff. Another department, say, like ground operations, or who send reports, would ask the question, why are you sending that report? Who you're sending that report to? Is it because you always did a report like that in your last company? And you carried on that process? Who's it going to? Who's reading it? And the whole idea was to create some efficiencies and reduce the amount of work involved. So to try and obviously make things a bit leaner, the whole lean management program. And then we gathered all that information and we presented it to the board, and then we looked at stuff. And one of the outcomes of that process was that we realized that the utilization of Envision wasn't being used to its full capacity.
Yeah.
So just focusing on Envision and Rasada, we kind of said, okay, why? And for us, it was a new computer software. No one in the Maldives had used it before. And there was a resistance to change everywhere and a new software. But one of the key managers, our co-manager, was a big fan of it and really saw the potential. So then we just put full focus. And because of this whole process, the ownership had sight of it. So then we sent, obviously, as you know, we sent, a gap analysis and a breakdown. And we found out we were using probably about, I think the figure was 47% of what we should be using on a whole sections. So then that enabled us to have a conversation with you guys. And then during that process, it's been now 2 months, I'd say, Peter, isn't it? We've been working together. We've had weekly calls. You guys have increased training all through Zoom, because that's the way we work these days. Or not, if you use something else, but we have one of these softwares to go through. And I think when we looked at now the utilization last week, I think we're at about 87% now, aren't we? And I don't think we'll ever be 100%, because no one ever used 100%. But from increasing it by 40% is a massive increase in the space of 2 months.
Yeah.
And the top management's been involved in the calls. And we've increased the number of super users within the company. And I think we've got a few little things we're working through, but I think as 2 companies working very remotely over different time zones, I think we've actually achieved a great deal. I wasn't expecting to have this much success. I'm not, and that's a fact. I thought there'd still be a big resistance to change, but I think we've pushed through the resistance to change of accepting the new software. We've actually, now we're getting more buy-in, and I think you guys are getting good positive feedback from our guys of how to even improve software going forward. So I think as a silver lining, and drilling it right down to Envision, that's a big silver lining. And we've not had that same success on other softwares. And I know this is a Rasada interview, but I'm not being biased on that. But I do think that we have, like, made things leaner across our company to be able to look at and question, why do you do something? I'd recommend anyone, if you get the opportunity, to just ask the question, why do employees do certain things?
It's interesting, isn't it, what you're saying there? And it's throughout the industry. People do things and you say, why are you doing that? And it's, well, I've always done it. They have absolutely no idea why they're doing it in the first place.
I think the other key question as well to ask, other than just why you're doing it, is who is the customer?
Yeah.
If they can't tell you who the customer is, just remove that job from it. Now, the customer might be someone who uses it like invisible, like the authority. So we have to do certain things, maybe, pump data in and it sits there, but it's for the authority. That's fine. But if it's for, oh yeah, we think it's for flight ops, well, okay then. Then go and ask flight operations, why do you need this information from engineering?
Yeah.
Because if engineering got it, we had a situation where there was a on-time report being sent from 2 departments. And I was like, well, why don't just one department do it? We had ground ops doing it and flight and ops control doing it. I said, well, ops control can do it. Oh, but they might have a wrong view. Well, you feed in the information and then just send it once. We don't need 2 copies. And we've nipped it in we're fortunate, but obviously not fortunate because our whole situation of the business is on a brink, on a knife edge because of no tourists traveling.
Yeah, that's it. One of the hot topics really in most industries over these few months is the realization of what can be achieved remotely and electronically. And you touched on that there. We've managed to do some really good things remotely and electronically, despite the distance there and sometimes poor connectivity and things like that. And that's, across the industry, whether it's training on a system or even scanning a QR code so you don't have to touch a menu in a restaurant and things like that. Electronic sign-off was already a really big focus in our industry before all of this. And it's something I think that's going to really kind of push on over the coming years. And it's definitely something that we've concentrated on and put a lot of effort in with our software over the last year or so. Do you actually see any major potential changes on the horizon in the aviation, tourism or hospitality industry? Or do you think that things can get back to how they were as a result of this pandemic?
I think there'll be some improvements because I don't want to get away from a personal touch. I really don't like the fact that you go to a restaurant, you interact with the waiter and sphere. That's all part of it. I just been to a cafe actually, and they have that whole QR code on the desk. And the waiter came along and said, "You know how to use a QR code?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, I can also take the order if you want." Now, 3 weeks ago, they weren't doing that at all. So it's funny how it's starting to almost merge to have a bit more conversation. I like to have that human contact.
Yeah.
So one thing I think it might help, I'm speaking because I'm not an engineer, I'm kind of a jack of all trades within the airline, being the COO. I think this check-in process is going to help us. Like in the Maldives, we don't have the automated check-in process, and space is a premium in the Maldives in the terminal, and I think we can have more efficiencies. I think with the airport and this whole kind of automated check-in, that might get pushed along a little bit quicker. I think translating information of electronic sign-off, whether you can have an engineer. We've got a situation where we've got 3 engineering bases effectively. We have this seaplane terminal where our seaplanes are. We have the ATR line, which flies out the international. And then we have our hangar on a different island. So effectively, we're operating almost on 3 different islands. So anything we can have that creates, as phone calls, you can have miscommunication, and at the moment we're predominantly Maldivian engineers, but if you've got a mixture of expats as well, and communication that can be flown hardwired rather than through a telephone call where you may have a difference in accents, the rest of it, I see that as a positive, just to reinforce. And the communication, we don't want to be a society where we just talk through WhatsApp. It's nice to have a dialogue. And it's amazing, I think, even in recent months, I know that all the conversations I've had with Rasada, we've never had our videos on.
Yes, true.
And I think it's funny, when I first started Zoom, we insisted on having all the videos on. And I think that died about I'd say probably beginning of June, the videos didn't seem to be going on so much. And now very few.
People are reluctant to put the effort in, aren't they?
Yeah, I think whether people aren't properly dressed or you don't want to look up someone's nose, I don't know. But luckily you and me, we're both facing frontwards. But
okay.
Yeah, so, but you know what I mean? And that's where I think we don't want to lose that human contact. I think it's very important that software companies obviously are very much like techie. I'd always encourage people to come for a face-to-face meeting to the Maldives. I'd actually encourage Rosada to come to Maldives. Before the coronavirus, there were 5 flights a day on Emirates.
Yeah.
From going into the Maldives daily. It's very good connectivity, and it's where you kind of sit down, and it's not so much. I think you have to be careful on the Zoom calls. It's very much keeps the agenda. Whereas when you're there, a lot of the information you'll gather how to improve your product is over the dinner table in the evening or away from the problems.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So I think development-wise, I think it's very important that when this pandemic's over, businesses get to travel a bit and then improve things that way. That's a key. That's my personal view.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's certainly a balance there that needs to be struck, where things have to change and things will change in positive ways, but also that we, as you say, we can't lose that interaction side of it. Is so important. And I think looking forward, maybe 2021, I think, has to be a focus for many tourism-related businesses, with the hope that maybe a new year will allow people to like reassess their plans, start to regain some form of normality. And I know many people now are desperate to get back out there and make up for missing holidays this summer and things like that. Have you got any specific plans for Manta Air in 2021, or is it just focus on the rest of this year and hopefully things will pick up?
No, it's funny. We're actually working on a number of projects now that are quite exciting, and it shows the ownership's commitment. We're obviously always looking for new contracts to fulfill and build the business. That's obviously how a business grows and becomes profitable, the rest of it. But we're not just sitting on our laurels. There's 3 projects. They're not a secret, so I can share them. One we're working on. We've got the 3 ATRs that aren't being utilised to their full extent at the moment. So we're in the process of applying for an international license to fly internationally. So we can go to look in Sri Lanka and India. The range of the ATR with the number of passengers we want is up to about Bangalore. So we're looking around a circle on there. So that's in process. The second project, which is actually really exciting, it might be something that might be involve you guys going forward as well, is that we are looking to develop a training academy to train. Everyone always thinks pilots for training academies. But we're looking not just to have trained pilots, but we're looking at engineers, cabin crew, and only other, develop local talent. It doesn't have to be local talent; it could be anyone could come and stay there. To actually have a training academy and develop that side of a business as well. So Manta's a training academy, and we're talking to a few accredited schools at the moment. So it's properly, going to be a proper business, develop talent, and we're kind of feeding obviously the Maldivian market because there's a resource gap in the Maldives. And then another project we're looking at as well is putting the Twin Otter on wheels. That's more of an interim, because while the ATR is not, the twin seaplanes can't fly at night because you can't land at sea at night. So we don't necessarily want to fly an ATR with 10 passengers on board. It's not environmentally good. It's not cost good. There's no benefits. So we're looking to see if we can try and put a Twin Otter on wheels, and then we can, operate that for when the demand is a bit lower. So yes, we're looking at, keeping the business alive and cash conservation and lean management, but then the ownership is also looking to be, a long-term player. There's been a big investment within the company, a lot of blood, sweat and tears. So yeah, it's nice to see that commitment.
Definitely, especially in these times. And I think, so from a training center point of view, you're looking at the likes of the human factors training and things like that, or also spanning all the way through to licensing and your
the license, everything, all the way.
Wow. Okay.
So we've engaged in some talks with schools. We've appointed one of our managers to be, director of the training academy. Mm-hmm. So he's leading that project, and we're at a stage where we're gathering information and try to build it up. But the idea is, yes, to have like a flight school. But why just have a flight school? The engineering side is equally as important. Cabin crew training, there's some low-hanging fruit there as well. And then, like you say, the human factors, which we already do in-house training for that. So that side of the business, Manta's really grown very fast. Bear in mind, in May 2018, when I started with the company, we had all the chairs in plastic. There was 4 employees. Pre-COVID, we were just over 320 employees, 9 aircraft of 2 types, with our own AMO covering the ATR and Twin Otter. So there's a big push for work here. There's an infrastructure. Now sadly, we had to make some redundancies, like many companies. But one of the driving forces for the international project is so we can bring people back from unpaid leave, back into the fold and operate them. The ownership is very aware that we support a lot of families.
Yeah.
And they're keen, and they've been very committed to the staff, and to make sure that in these times, because there's not many jobs in the Maldives that are not tourist related.
Yeah, there's only a limited number of employers, isn't there? Certainly in the aviation side. Yeah. It's positive, really positive. Good way to end this chat, I think. I might finish up, if you will allow me to, with a quick speed round. Okay, so you have to got to answer these quick.
Okay.
Let people get to know you a bit more. Right, rotary or fixed?
Now I'm ready.
Rotary or fixed wing?
I love rotary, and I've even flown a Sea King.
Really? Okay. A telephone call or an email?
Oh, a telephone call.
Glass of red or a glass of white?
White.
Okay. Football or rugby?
Oh, rugby.
Okay. Rugby or cricket?
Rugby.
Okay. The Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Rolling Stones. Seen them twice.
Oh, nice. Very good. Ferrari or Lamborghini?
Ferrari.
Good answers. And that's it. Ed, thank you so much for being a part of our first episode. Really appreciated. Best of luck to Manta for the rest of this year and into 2021 as well. Thank you.
And likewise to you guys. And thank you for all the support over the last 3 months. You guys have really come to the fold. I had concerns because of the fact that all what's going on with the business, but you guys have been on the dot. We've had calls at least once a week, and it's been very, very good. And I feel we've all moved forward, and hopefully we'll kind of help develop your product, and we'll grow together. And then you must get down to the Maldives, and we'll have a glass of white wine, watch rugby, on the beach, but not romantically.
I don't think you have to twist my arm that much.
Exactly.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Take care.